past 4 o'clock, so we will start our meeting, and if Sue comes, so Dr. Payne.
Well, I'd like to welcome Dr. Truckenmiller as our new member here of the board. Greg, do you know everybody?
I know most everyone.
Okay, I'm Jim Perez.
You before.
Todd Rulson.
Todd and Mike.
Okay.
Hi.
Joe.
Hi, I'm Carol Elias. I'm counsel for the IDA.
She's our,
She was last year's, we got to vote on whether or not.
and obviously you know Scott.
And Jack.
Warren.
This is for Christina Van Valkenburg. She's my deputy supervisor in the town of Johnstown.
Nice to meet you.
Excellent choice.
Yes, it was.
I'd love to have one.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, Warren.
All righty, well, let's get on with things here. Minutes from our November meeting. I'm sure you've all been studying them hard and carefully over the preparation for today's meeting. But if someone can make a motion to accept those, would be appreciated. Dave, is there a second to that motion? Joe Semyon, any further discussion? All in favor of approving the minutes, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Budget report, there's actually 2 of them that are attached to your, to the end of the agenda here. The first one is the actual 2000, and for the entire year of 2021. Just wanted to give you the highlights of that. It's titled up top 2021 budget report. The first column is what was the actual budget for the agency for 2021. The middle column where the yellow highlights are revenues and expenditures. Hi, Sue. You have to come on and have a seat right here. Okay. That's okay. She said this is how she goes. Okay. All right. Sue or Suzanne, which you prefer?
Sue.
You prefer Sue. Sue Collins, our next new member here. We've already done introductions once for Dr. Truckenmiller. We'll go around again if you don't mind and hear everybody's name. Do you know most of the folks? You don't know anybody.
Sorry, I'm late. 3:30 is next one possible to leave on time from work.
Fair enough. Start with this way.
Mike Fitzgerald.
Hi, Mike.
Greg Truckenmiller. Dave Demore.
I am Carol Elias.
Joe Semyon.
Todd Wilson.
Okay.
Sue Collins.
Kara is our counsel. She's from a law firm.
Joe.
I'm proud of you.
I see her back. All right. So Sue, we are on the second item on the agenda. We're looking at our budget reports. They're towards the end of the agenda. You know, first there's a page with some yellow on it, up top titled the 2021 budget report. Again, the first column is the budget. The second column is the revenues and expenditures through the end of last year from for the most part of the month of December. Then the right-hand column, which is what I want to focus on, are the totals for all of 2021. And if you look at it, about halfway down, you see total revenues. Okay. Well, the revenues came in obviously significantly higher than what we had budgeted. All right, and that was all attributed to the lot sale for Vireo, which we didn't factor into the budget for last year because we weren't sure if it was going to happen or not. But it did occur, and it generated, if you see up top, in those 2 transactions between the lot sale and the administrative fee, almost $1.4 million in revenue. And that's what put us, significantly over what our estimates were. On the expenditure side, down on the bottom, our actual expenditures came in slightly higher than what we had budgeted. And again, those are all shown on those individual lines there. Some of that was the payments that were made as a result of that one lot sale. So the good news is it was a very good year for the IDA in terms of revenues over expenditures. Yes, we hope that this year will be even better, given what we've got out there. Okay. Is there any questions on that particular report? Flip 2 pages, and you'll see the 2022 budget report up top. That is for this year to date, which is not a lot that we've got. But if you look on the revenue side, we've had nothing coming in on the revenue side. Under expenditures, we've had a disability insurance payment of $47. We had fire taxes that are going to be that are in the agenda to approve. We've got those listed here. Likewise, the membership for the CRG is in here is shown here, but again, that'll be authorized at today's meeting. Other than that, that's all that has taken place so far in 2022. The first part of 2022.
So question. Or is that like a plan, but just
You can, yep. Which one?
the long part of that. Did he complete all the long?
No.
That's why it's.
That's correct. We're so wet out there that he didn't complete all of the mowings out there. Okay, now, the hope is going to be that if the Win Stanley transaction takes place, right, then we may not have to do any mowing again out there, which would be another savings to us. So we're just gonna have to see how that plays out here in coming months. Okay?
So that, there was still property out there that we would own if Win Stanley does go through.
A little,
A little
but
bit.
it's gonna round the entrance road,
entrance road.
but that's about it.
Alright.
All the around building 3 and build the maintenance building, no, that would all go away.
Gotcha. Alright.
Okay? So with that, if everybody's comfortable, if someone make a motion to accept those budget reports.
I'll make the motion here.
Thank you, Mike. Is there a second to that? Tad, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Page 2, under committee reports, the nominating committee, just gets a chance to make its annual report. And offering a slate of officers for 2022. Chairman would be Joe Semyon, Vice Chairman would be Mike Fitzgerald, Treasurer would be Todd Willison, and the Secretary would be Joe Gills. If there's no other nominations to be made, look for a motion to accept the report of the nominating committee for the 2022 officers. Thank you, Dave.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Greg. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Congratulations to the chairman and condolences to the vice chair.
It was a great burger.
Yeah, it was a good lunch.
Oh, you had this.
Audit committee, monthly bank reconciliation reports. Mike, found everything in order?
Yes, Carol sent them over to me. I reviewed them. Everything was in order, signed and returned.
Very good. Other reports, Mr. Green, anything to offer?
Well, there isn't much this time because we were obviously closing out and we've already come up with the budget. I think I reported at our last meeting here. I guess the only thing I can report is this may be my last meeting. I'm not 100% sure of that because I've been flipped over to the CRG coming up pretty soon. So I'm not sure how much longer it'll go. Greg Fagan is now the chairman of the board of supervisors, and it's up to him to make that decision who would be next. Thank you all very much for everything.
Thanks for your input, Warren.
Great to deal with. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Warren. Travis, are you all with us?
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Travis Mitchell from the CRG will give the CRG report, a copy of which is also attached to your agenda, and it should be right behind the budget reports that we just looked at. Travis, fire away.
All right. Sorry, I'm not there in person. Hopefully, next time around here later this year, I'll be able to get there in person. I think we've got a good connection now on the cell. So you've got a copy, I believe Jim just said, of the report. I'll just go through and add a little bit to it. On the business marketing and lead side, Ron and the CRG staff continue to work with a large agricultural development company on a project. They have been for several months now. He's presented several sites to them, and they're working with National Grid to find a site that works with their space needs and their utility needs. So that's something that's ongoing. We're continuing to work with an out-of-state glove sewing operation that's pretty serious about relocating to the area. Looks like some good progress is being made. Would bring roughly 15 jobs along with it. So we're pretty hopeful on that. Toward the end of last year, CRG was successful working with Swaney on their relocation to 122 Balazano, which freed up their old building for TaylorMade, who are now occupying that building. I know the site assessment study is something that we're all anxiously waiting on. I spoke with Ron about that today. He reports that it's about 95% done. He's got a draft and has provided comments back to Elan to be addressed before he pushes it out to the group, and hopeful that that's out within the next 30 to 45 days. The CRG is reviewing proposals currently. Ron's got a subgroup doing that for engineering consultants as part of the $300,000 EPA county-wide site assessment grant. You've got 5 proposals in. A couple of the firms are local in the Albany area. Hopefully in the next month we'll be able to select a firm there. Late last year, we closed on the first JDA agricultural loan. This is a $500,000 loan pool that came around last year. First loan was with Stump City Brewery. We have a couple other applicants that the CRG staff is working with. Look pretty hopeful. Micro Enterprise Grant Program continues to march on. It's a successful program, several years ongoing now. Closed out the final audits for the 2018 and 20 to 20 programs, and received a couple drawdowns for the 2021 Micro Enterprise Grant Program. And it's kind of a new spin on this with another pool of money, around $450,000. To be distributed by the end of 2022 to businesses that can show a negative impact as a result of the pandemic. Currently have about a dozen or so businesses that have submitted all the paperwork, and pretty optimistic we'll be able to get all the 450,000 or so distributed this year. Some of those, depending on their income levels, have to add at least one full-time employee along with the acceptance of the grant. I'm sure you all know the Gloversville was awarded the $10 million Downtown Revitalization Initiative grant late last year. They're now working on forming a steering committee, which has to be approved by the state, and then that committee then has the proposals run through it, seek public comment on the proposals and the use of funds, and ultimately it all gets approved by the state. CRG is continuing to work with the Kearney Group on plans for 52 Church Street. This is the 77-unit Glove City Loft housing project that's been in the paper in front of the planning board here in the last few months. And working with Gloversville, Johnstown, and Northville, and chasing down a grant for downtown marketing that Ron's pretty hopeful about. Other than that, I guess just the Gloversville loan program. The grant was awarded here recently to Austin Glass. And funds will be used there for help them purchase their building and some additional equipment to expand their business. And that's all I've got for you. Any questions on that?
Any questions for Travis?
I've got one question, Travis. Joe Semyon. I've been to for a few of your meetings. The site assessment through Elan, and
Yep.
we just keep being pushed out a little bit, but you said it's about 95% done, so hopefully within a month's time, you're going to have a final presentation.
Yeah,
Organizations.
that's what we're hoping.
Supervisors.
Yep. Exactly, that's what we're hoping. We, quite a while back, several months back now, kind of the working group had spoke with Elan as they started to develop their findings, but it's been several months now. I think, as I mentioned, I did talk to Ron about it today, and he's got some comments that he wants them to address. I think mostly on utilities to some of their recommended sites, just to kind of clean some of that up in the report. And then, as I said, he hopes in the next 30 to 45 days, we'll get that out to the different interested parties.
Very good. Thank you, Travis. Anyone else?
Thanks. Any other questions for Travis? All right, thanks, Travis.
All right, thank you all. Yep, I'm going to stay on here for a bit and listen. Thank you.
Okay. Okay, under old business, Nexus Renewable Project, still kind of going through the approval processes. NYSERDA has finally granted their financial incentives, but unfortunately, it took so long to grant those incentives that National Grid's approval of their interconnection expired. They provided National Grid with their down payment for that, with the understanding that they'd have to give the final payment by mid-December. Mid-December came. Nexus had received word from NYSERDA that the financial incentives that are critically necessary for their project to move forward hadn't been approved. So that they did not make the second final payment to National Grid, because if they did, and the financial incentives didn't come in, that payment would not be refundable. Shortly after that, the NYSERDA approvals come in, so they've reapplied to National Grid to get the interconnect approved, and that should be done in relatively short order. The other issue is they still haven't executed a construction contract. The big issue is their tariffs on the solar panels, which have a major impact on the pricing for these panels. There's a current tariff on them, and on one-sided tariff or one-sided panels, there's an 18% tariff. On bifacial panels, there's a 0% tariff. The Biden administration has announced that they will announce what they're doing with these tariffs on January 17th. And industry reps thinking that no, there's going to be no change. Others are thinking there's going to be a change in the amount of tariffs. But because of that uncertainty, the construction contractors won't lock in prices on these panels, because they don't want to lock in and then find out that the cost of the panels have jumped because of the change in tariffs. So long and short of it, project is still on hold, pending resolution of those two items. Burial Health Project, construction's ongoing, behind schedule because of all the rains last fall. Looking for a midsummer completion date now, but it is moving along. With the Winstanley Enterprises, the appraisal that was authorized was completed. The appraised value of the 236 acres of land came in at 5.9 million. The purchase and sale agreement that we executed with them identified a sale price of 5.8 million. So we're obviously very close. For a transaction like this, if it's going to occur, we have to provide New York State with a 90-day notice. That's required when we're going to sell an asset through negotiations that are greater than $100,000. Kara has the letter drafted. It's attached to your package that will go out tomorrow, as long as the resolution that's also attached, which will authorize this sale, that resolution here is attached to your agenda. It's the standard resolution that we use that would authorize this negotiated sale of the 236 acres to Winstanley, assuming that all the due diligence that they're working on comes through, and they do wish to move forward with purchasing it, which, based upon everything that has transpired to date, that is the path upon which it's going. That they have uncovered nothing that would have them walk away from this transaction. So, Kara, anything further about the resolution itself?
No, it's basically a repeat of the prior resolution, but it addresses the fact that the appraised value is $100,000 more than the sale price, and indicates that you're making a finding that that's in the best economic interests of the community to accept that. And then this is the letter that we have to submit to all those various agencies.
Any questions? Yes, sir.
Do we get specific in the amount of money, the $100,000? Obviously, they've done a lot of work out there, demolition, grading, rerouting of water lines. I mean, all expenses that usually the seller will be incur or be asked to participate.
We've agreed to that price.
Okay.
Yeah,
It's
we've
that
agreed
simple.
to the
We've
price.
we signed the purchase and sale agreement with that as the stipulated purchase price.
Okay, I didn't know how much detail we had to get into.
No, the detail that you're making the findings of is that selling it at $100,000 below that appraised value, which is relative, is that, you're putting the property back on the tax rolls. This particular developer has the resources to fully develop the property that the IDA does not have.
Because ABO says that you're supposed to sell assets for at or above fair market value.
Right.
Okay, and since this instance, it's in the tiny little bit below, we have to justify it, and that's what this resolution is saying.
Is,
Okay.
is the justification that's laid out in that letter, it seems to me it's not an uncommon justification for that. kind of-
Right, because the only reason you can accept a purchase price for less than the fair market value is if you make a finding that it's in the economic benefits in the best economic interest of the community.
And
Putting it back on the tax rolls alone,
And the
Right.
economic interest is putting it back on
Right.
the tax rolls and the jobs that are gonna be created as
Yeah.
a result of this. And that's what's articulated. Okay. Would someone make a motion to adopt that resolution, please? Todd and Joe, any further discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carried.
Quick question about the
Yes, sir.
Vireo Health project. Before, I thought there was a big rush because they wanted to be kind of grandfathered in by April 1st.
Yep.
Has legislature going to be pushed back, or will it be grandfathered in, or they just have to roll with what's?
It
The
was
rules
the date
are-
of April 1st was put out there by New York State because that was the date that the regulations were supposed to be taking effect. The State has announced that those regulations will not be put in place at that date. It's gonna be significantly later,
Good, so
so they have more time.
good, because
Okay.
I was worried about all the.
Yep.
Rush.
All right, our former maintenance building. Last month ago, National Grid finally provided lot holdings with the quote to provide the new electric service to their building. Friday, Randy Lott emailed us all saying that he had just been advised that there may not be any power available for that building at Tryon, and that National Grid was going to be taking a look at it today. I just spoke with Randy a short while ago. He received confirmation from the person he's been working with at National Grid that there is going to be enough capacity for this building. And so he wishes to move forward with purchasing it. If you recall, he had a deadline for completing his due diligence, which was 6 months ago. We've extended it a couple of times to afford him to complete his due diligence. That latest extension ends this Friday. So I'd like to suggest we extend, we're not gonna be able to close by that. Okay, so we'd like to, because the contract says he needs to, we're just dealing with some contract language. So I'm recommending that we extend that completion date through March of this year. Hopefully the closing will take place within a couple of weeks, but you'd have until that time to get it done. So I'd like to have for a motion to extend that time period through March of this year.
I'm all in favor of that. But I hear discussion as to, are we going to, do we want to get in there even earlier than a couple weeks? for
No.
closing?
No, as long as we can close.
yeah, everything is really, I was gonna bring everything
Right,
with me
there's three
today,
of us.
and then he was like, put this on hold, so I had the survey, everything's done really, so I'll just probably send a packet, I'll talk to him tomorrow and get a package out to everybody, yeah.
Because Randy, what we had talked about was, in the event that it was for some reason, it might take 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks to close on this property. He wants to get in there and start work now. That we would execute one of those license agreement like we did with Vireo, where we gave Vireo the right to go onto the land while we still owned it to start work. Okay, and then and so we were going to do that, but then Kara kind of said, well, we can get this closing done sooner than later. And so Randy said, no, then we don't need to, we can do it. As long as the closing is going to happen in relatively short time, let's just do that and I can get in there and get started. Okay, so that's the path that we're on. So for now, and for quick update, this is one of the existing buildings that's at the Tryon Technology Park. We had put it up for sale a year or so ago, got a couple of offers, accepted this one from Randy Lott, who owns Lott Holdings Company. And we've just been going through this process as he's been trying to figure out what it's going to cost to get power put into the building. He's finally got that information, so now we're move to closure.
Did you
So,
say how much it was by chance?
yes,
Say or-
no,
Okay.
he hasn't said if I could or not, so I'm not gonna,
Okay,
I can tell you.
no problem. Very good.
So we have a motion to extend the due diligence date through March 31st of 2022. Joe has made that as a motion. Is there a second to that?
I'll second.
Dave Moore, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carried. Committee appointments for 222 as designated by the chairman are shown there on the agenda. These are not up for discussion.
I've
Exalted Mystic Ruler has laid down the law.
I have worked tirelessly, flipping coins, seeing.
So, if that's okay, moving on. These are we're now going to go into all of the annual meeting items that we have to go through. First, staff appointments. The bylaws require the IDA board to annually appoint the executive director, chief financial officer, and auditor. We'll start with the executive director. There's a motion to approve, appoint myself to be the executive director for 2022. If someone, Joe would make that motion.
I'll second.
Mike Fitzgerald with a second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Second is Carol Ellis as the chief financial officer.
I'll make a motion.
Dave, is there a second?
Second.
Todd, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Auditor, recommending Weston Company, same fee as has been over the last number of years. Someone make that motion? Greg, thank you. Second to that motion?
I'll second.
No, Sue's.
Oh, Sue's
okay.
Just beat you to it.
Any further discussion?
Just jump right in there.
They rotate their lead
Every 5 years,
Every
every 5 years. This is year 3 of his rotation.
Okay.
Okay? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
And here we go. Legal Services, recommending retention of Fitzgerald, Morris, Baker, Firth to continue as IDA counsel for 2022.
We're gonna bring in Billy for this one.
Someone make a motion, please.
Wait a
Thank
second,
you.
would wait quick. I would love to second it.
Okay. All in favor, say aye. Okay.
You're out of order.
Next item is per our investment policy, recommending that all the banks listed on there be designated as eligible depositories for IDA funds. The reality is at present, we have all of our funds with NBT Bank, but this is affording us the ability to distribute to other ones if that ever an opportunity or need arose during the year of 2022. Someone willing to make that motion?
I'll make the motion.
Thank you, Sue. Second?
Second.
All in favor, say
I
aye.
have a discussion on this.
Oh, you do?
Yes. And not because I'm a former employee, but with Berkshire's closure of the Johnstown branch, they no longer have a presence at Fulton County.
Like I said, they're not on the list. See, this is sometimes dangerous to just reprint from last year's.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, Mike. With that,
Would we ever want to do community bank?
Yeah, they're crossing the Holiday Inn.
That's how they, as a substitute,
Yeah.
we'll have all our options.
Yep.
available. They're good.
Okay.
They do things with it.
alrighty. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? The chief financial officer's 2021 financial report has been sent to Weston Companies. I've already had several conversations with Mike Rossi, providing more information and explanations. And Mike today advised that he expects to have the audit ready for review here at your March 8th meeting. Okay, because we have to get that submitted to the state by the end of March. 2021 IDA Board Performance Questionnaire. One thing that you folks always enjoy filling out is attached. After Sarah's letter, it's titled the 2021 IDA Board Performance Questionnaire. The results are shown there. And one comment that was in terms of looking at goals, I think that's something we're going to talk about here today. And down at the bottom, there was not quite complete agreement on a couple of those items. Board members feel empowered to delay votes, defer agenda items. You know, someone's comment was that, you know, not comfortable, you know, doing that. And the reality is, if you feel something shouldn't be voted on, speak up. You know, that's why you're here. And you certainly would be encouraged to do so in that situation. Exercising appropriate oversight of the executive director and setting performance expectations and reviewing performance annually. You know, that's not done formally. If that's something you wish to start, and certainly that's your prerogative as the board to do that with respect to the executive director. And risk mitigation strategies before problems occur. You know, I think we do that to a certain degree. Fortunately, we've not had many problems that we were of risk that we've had to deal with. So that's not something that I think has been a major issue for us. So any other thoughts or comments on the results of the questionnaire? All right, there's a motion then to, what we have to do is to post that onto the ID's website. So I'm asking for a motion to authorize having myself posting that onto the ID's website. Dave, second to that motion. Thank you, Mike. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Our performance and measurement report, again, the ABO requires us to do this every year. That report is attached to your agenda, and it's kind of, it says what our mission statement is, and it identifies some governance certifications, and this is the same report that we annually approve to comply with this particular requirement. So anyone have any questions on that report? It's the same one that we've approved in years past. If done, I'd like to have that motion to authorize the chairman to sign this and to have it filed and put onto the ID's website. Greg, thank you. Is there a second to that motion? Thank you, Sue. Any further discussion?
Is this just a
Yep.
standard,
Yes,
standard
yes.
report, basically, someone from outside or
Many-
whatever?
Yep. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Last one is our assessment of the effectiveness of our our internal financial control system. A couple of months ago, we kind of did a walkthrough of our financial control system and how it functions, how checks are written. We have to have 2 signatures on checks, how deposits are handled. And so we went through all that, discussed it at the time. There was no issues brought up by board members at that time. From management standpoint, management being myself as a CEO and Carol as a CFO, we have no issues in making and have no recommendations to make the change to our internal financial control system. So at the top of page 8, in years when there are no changes that need to be made, we adopt this statement that says the board has documented and assessed the internal control structure procedures of the IDA for the year 2021. Internal controls were determined to be adequate and no deficiencies were identified and no corrective actions were deemed required. That is what ABO requires us to say. And so I'm asking for a motion to adopt that statement and to post that statement onto the IDA's website. So Semyon, second to that motion?
I'll say it.
Thank you,
I
Todd.
do have a question.
Okay, fire away.
Weston Company?
Yep.
They also will look at the effectiveness
That's
of those
correct.
controls?
Yes,
as
they
well
do.
during
Yep.
their audit?
We do that every year.
A follow-up question.
Fire away.
So in the banking industry recently, we've seen a tremendous amount of fraud. The bad guys are becoming more sophisticated. So we've seen a couple instances where they either got a stolen check and altered it, or they make a very good copy of an existing check. So how often does Carol look at our accounts to see what checks have cleared and compare it to what's in the register?
Fairly regularly.
Okay, weekly?
Oh, at least.
Okay,
I
that's
think,
fine.
yeah, at least.
All right.
Okay. It also depends upon how often we write checks, but since we usually write at least one check a week,
Mhm.
you know, she would be checking it on that occasion when she goes to write that check.
Yeah, that's fast.
Okay? Is weekly enough, you think, Mike?
I think weekly is enough.
Okay, all right, I will talk to her about that. Just to be sure. Okay? We have a motion and a second. Is there a vote? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Next, our annual membership for the CRG, for the gold membership, invoice amount is $1,000. Asking for a motion to authorize the payment of that $1,000 membership fee to the CRG. Dave DeMore, is there a second?
I'll second.
Mike? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Our 2021 pilot report, I think for everyone's sake, we have several active pilots with companies. Many pilots are set up where the IDA sends bills to the companies send the payments to the IDA, then the IDA sends the payments to the taxing jurisdictions. Well, we've taken the IDA out of that, we have been since the beginning. The taxing jurisdictions send the invoice directly to the company, and the company sends the payment directly to the taxing jurisdiction, just how normal tax bills are done. But since it's our pilot, we want to make sure that all of those companies are paying those payments that there should be. So what we do each year, when we sign documents with these companies, they have to agree to send us reports on what they're doing. So each year we send out letters to both the companies and the local taxing jurisdictions, asking them to document what payments the companies made and what receipts the taxing jurisdictions received. So we check from both ends. And the long and short of it is we documented that all the required pilot payments that were supposed to be made this year have indeed been made. Okay, so that's the good news. Going to page 10.
Everyone says that you only got responses from some.
Correct, but we have enough to show that the pilot payments were made. We've got a few more came in today.
Okay.
Okay, yes, you're right. They're not all in, but in some instances, we've got the taxing jurisdiction telling us they received it, but we didn't get a confirmation yet from the company saying they paid it. But at least one entity has confirmed that they, that they've received it. So once they all come in, I'll send out a final report so you'll see it all. This is best available information as of today. Top of page 10, 2022 goals. We established some goals for last year, suggesting a couple of goals to consider for 2022. One, completing the sale of the land to Winstanley Enterprises should be a goal for this year. Two, when this list of sites comes out, I think that would be the time for the IDA to look at identifying potential new sites for development and or redevelopment and conduct those desktop environmental assessments on them. Continuing board training is something I think we should be as a goal, especially with new members, correct? Anything else?
So when we get that list from Elon, we are identifying sites. You just talked about environmental concerns. Is their report gonna identify, because I know we've talked about this in the past, municipal, water, sewer, gas, electric? It's supposed to, okay.
Yeah, we'll see in 30 to 45
I believe so. And if not, Mike, we've got enough internal knowledge here that if for some reason that site didn't have information about it, then we can get it pretty quick.
Yeah, and that's what I think I was suggesting is when that list comes out, if we identify a site, we use our resources
Right.
within the county to identify any shortfalls that might be in place to make
We
it show.
certainly
right.
can do that, yes. Any other goals?
Jim, the summit that occurred this past year, well,
Uh-huh.
Yeah. Huh?
There was no meeting.
well, I'm sorry, it was
You wanted to.
year prior.
Year prior, 2 years. 3 years.
Pandemic has me way off in
Join the
terms
club.
of where the hell we're at. We had previously had a summit.
Correct.
Of key people. I think that should be a goal for this year as well.
Follow up?
Do you guys feel as though, the working with National Grid to expedite hurdles and potential projects, is that accomplished or is that,
No.
No,
so that should move forward to this year?
absolutely.
We started it. Okay,
We hope that it will.
and we're looking at the part of the progress. But in all sincerity, thought that a way to help would be to involve a National Grid representative, on the board. Because we had it in the past and it really helped. And I think your presence here will help that again, get going again. Is there more work we need to do? Probably yes. All right, and that's part of the reason I think we wanted to get someone from the grid here was to help in that regard.
And it should be pointed out that the reason that was on the list was we had a number of projects in the offer that seemed to have a necessity to get National Grid involved. And there were a number of issues that came up related to upfront fees or, review periods and things that created stumbling blocks to the projects that we were considering. And we felt that there's got to be some way to try to ease that burden a bit. Municipally speaking, I think everybody's on board, and then we get to the utility side of things tend to block down.
That's what happened with the Randy Lott situation. He needed to price how much it was going to cost to bring power to his building, and it's been 5, 6 months, and, they've been talked back and forth, there's a lot of promises,
Right.
so as a
And then
person.
what happened during those talks, Bureau asked for their expansion,
Right.
and then National Grid allocated what was available on the circuit to them.
Right.
So then in the last moment,
Right.
we had to do engineering, had to do a review to see if there was
Right.
still enough
Right.
to get power.
And I'm glad that there is.
So I think it'd be good to keep that on there for next year, because it's an ongoing thing, just like board training, keeping relationships with key utilities is just an ongoing.
I guess from my side, you guys need to get National Grid involved as soon as possible. Don't wait. Maybe don't wait until it's in your agenda or whatever, because it takes longer than you think to do.
Well, which is why we reached out with Lynn Stanley months ago
Yeah.
and give you the heads up that this is going. And I know there's discussions going on, which is great. That thing's up and running, so. All right, so we'll have those three. We'll have the National Grid one, and we'll do about a follow-up summit. Anything else?
About the sewer district. Creation of the sewer district to trying, which will try, I think will be included in that sewer district.
You can put that down there.
So we want to complete that sewer district, or see that come.
We want to see the county complete it.
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
And for us to be able to hand over the sewer system to the county, sewer district. Yep. Good point, Mike. All right. Another list. So what's, anything else to add? All right. Sounds good. Last item, next item, project application. Last meeting, I mentioned about this new state law that's going to require any economic development project of $5 million or more, of which 30% or more of that project is going to be funded through with public public subsidies, will be required for that project to pay prevailing wages. And as a result, the last couple of pages of your attachment, of your agenda here, are pages 12, 13, and 14 of the project application, which is this thing, which every company that comes to the IDA has to fill this thing out. Well, if you look on page 14, which is going to be an item number 21, I've added this little piece of the prevailing wage requirement. All right, and so right within the application, based upon the information the company is going to give us, we'll make a determination, be able to see and tell the company right up front, given your costs and given the subsidies that you're applying for, your project will or will not be required to pay prevailing wages.
And it's not just subsidies that we offer.
Oh, it's
It could be
correct.
Anybody.
It's everything. And that's, so I've modified this application so that we can get a determination made right in the application. And so since we are revising the application, I'm asking for the board to approve these revisions.
Do you have a sense how many projects could be impacted? Like, going back 5 years now, the number of projects that you might think of off the top of your head could have been impacted by this rule change?
I think you'd have to, for any of our IDA projects, you'd have to have some other outside funding
Sure.
too.
Because just our incentives typically
Don't
don't
do it.
trigger.
So
that.
Yeah.
get that close.
That doesn't trigger the 30%.
Well, I'm just curious, are there projects that come through that have outside funding?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Could be
There
through
are,
You get money
CFA,
through, yeah,
something like that?
Right.
Okay.
and quite often it's the CRG who's helping secure those dollars.
Yeah.
Okay, so
What
there-
was like the solar project that we talked about earlier, possibly fall under this?
no, because there's no others. Well, you're right. But those subsidies, well, first that's grandfathered in because that project started before
Well,
this law. But if
Let's say
that,
it started
right, if
today.
they started here, yes, we'd have, see, that's one thing we'd have to get from them is what is the dollar value of those NYSERDA incentives that they receive?
Yeah.
Okay, plus the sales tax exemptions that we provided, plus any other funding that they've got. And if all of those totaled 30% or more, yes, then they would have to pay prevailing wages.
But I mean, at that point, if they're filling out an application, they wouldn't know the exact amount of their NYSERDA total, right? I mean, it would be
They'd have to
speculation.
there'd have to be some speculation, correct?
Okay.
That's one of the unknowns with
And
this
then
whole process.
possibly a revision once those incentives are issued.
This is brand new.
right.
Understood.
Yeah, I mean, I think if that was the case, we would just have to follow it along. So when we got to that point,
Yeah.
I mean, my guess is it's depending on what they may not want to accept all
No, I understand. I'm just thinking through the process because that solar project gave us an application well in advance of them knowing what those incentives were gonna
Right.
be. So thinking through
yeah.
that, there's gonna have to be some sort of a revision process for those sorts of circumstances that come up. And, a final review prior to approval of an application.
How the regs on this law, are going to have to deal with some of these issues.
Yeah.
Because at the time of application and decision being made on whether this project complies, exceeds those thresholds, and that you may not have all the information available.
Right.
So what happens? Is the project on hold?
Right.
They can't start construction until this is resolved? Again, a question that hasn't been answered yet by the regulators.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, there might be a care question, will SB 504 be considered?
I don't know. That's a question that because I wondered that too.
That's gonna be 40% of the project, right off the shot.
Yeah,
It doesn't mean 5 million. If it's a $2 million project, you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
Mhm.
Right, yeah, this is
There's
right.
two criteria, 5 million, 30%. You gotta achieve both of those. So, but for now, I just want to get this application revised, so we have something in there so that we can show compliance with this new law. So I'm asking for a motion to approve a revised project application.
I'll make the motion.
Mike, is there a second?
One second.
Sue, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Last couple items quickly here. Our uniform tax exemption policy. We like to look at this every so often just to see how we compare to others. Our UTEP, our uniform tax exemption policy, says that the standard pilot that we offer is the one that's modeled after section 485B of New York State's real property tax law. It starts with a 50% exemption in year one. That exemption goes down 5% a year over a 10-year period. I surveyed other IDAs. I looked at 27 other IDAs to see how we compare to others. And of the 27 I reviewed, 5 of them offered the same as we do. 13 offer pilots that are more generous than ours. And then 9 have their pilots based upon some very general guidelines. All right, and that allowed them, wide ranging flexibility on what they wanted to offer. Basically, they basically say, whatever we need to offer to make this project happen, that's what we're going to do. But it creates subjectivity. You give one, another one, another one, another one. But nevertheless, a third of the ones that I surveyed, that's how they do it. So question becomes, does this information, encourage anyone here to want to say we should look to change ours or modify ours at all?
I have a question in terms of context. So 5 offer the same 485B pilot that we do. Where are they located? Is there a concentration or are they scattered? A similar question in 13 that offer different 485. They're different than the 485B. And I guess what I'm getting at is what are the motivations for increasing the benefit? Obviously, it's to attract opportunities to their location, but are they in a location that maybe is a dissuasive influence on decision makers?
Well, to answer your first question, the 5 counties are Albany County, Kirkland County, Orleans County, Schenectady County, and Putnam County. Those are the 5 that have the same pilot as us. So, a variety of bigger and smaller, counties. Your second question is, comment is, these other counties that offer more must feel that's going to be an incentive for a company to code there versus Fulton County. But I think that Joe and I have been discussing this quite a bit over the last couple of weeks, and I can't say that we have lost a potential prospect to a company to come here because of the pilot that we offer. Right? Typically, pilots are not a huge component of a company's decision. It's important. Don't get me wrong. It's important. But the potential savings that this pilot creates on a $100 million project is not a deal breaker typically. Again, I put this out here just as information, not suggesting that we should change, but just, again, it's part of board review here, so everybody sees what everybody else is doing.
Have we got any feedback from does the county like what we're doing right now as for, right? Because obviously if we change that, it can affect.
Well, all the local taxing jurisdictions, when we used to have as our model was 485E. All right, when we had those enterprise zones, economic development zones. And 485E said that there were 7 years of zero taxes. And then it graduated up 25% a year for 4 years till eventually year 11, you paid 100%. Every municipality around here didn't like that. Because for 7 years, they got zero. When the Empire Zone program went away, right, we proposed this as the model, and everybody kind of said, that's great. That means because for a new project that comes in, we're going to start getting something right off the bat. Even it's only half, I understand, but we're getting something right from day one. So this has been acceptable. Years ago when we did this, everybody was in favor of this.
This to me seems to be the fairer way to balance the desires of the applicant against the needs of the community that will benefit from that relocation. I'm not comfortable with the open-ended, hey, let's just do whatever, you know, that seems to be the wrong direction in my opinion.
Well, I think it came up because we had a request for some subjectivity, and I think, I know I was not in favor of that, I think the majority of us were
Right.
not.
I agree
Because
with
we
that.
originally talked about, it, we said, leave it all the same
Yeah,
Right, yeah, we don't want,
as a board.
we don't want to be accused of treating somebody more favorably than someone
But
else.
the request was for kind of a marginal project.
Mhm.
You know, you still have, our UTEP still allows you to deviate from this policy if you felt necessary. So for example, if there was an XYZ company that was interested in coming here, that was going to create 1,000 jobs that started at $70,000 a year, all right, and was going to create a tax base of $100 million, but they wanted a more beneficial pilot than this one, you're going to listen,
Mhm.
right? And you would then say, okay, we have the ability to deviate, and we can justify a deviation in this one instance because of the significant economic gains and benefits this particular project would create. Conversely, if there was a project that came in here that was going to create one job and invest $100,000, but wanted to double the pilot, your answer is going to be no, because it doesn't justify it. So you still have that ability to go more generous if you felt it was necessary.
there's nothing in what you revealed here that is a compelling argument for us to change our policy.
Does anyone disagree? Let's just move on.
Yes.
Okay. Next thing is our administrative fee. Again, part of our periodic review. We charge 0.75% of the total project cost as our administrative fee on a project, okay? We're all on page 12 of the agenda, okay?
Did you skip the motion on?
There's no action taken, Greg,
Oh, okay. All right.
okay? We didn't take an action. I had it in there in the event that the board wanted to change it, but since there was no change made, we're moving it. And it's the same setup on this item here. Again, we charge, our fee is 0.75% of the total project cost. Surveyed another 27 different ones, okay? Found 6 charge the same amount, 0.75%. 16 of them charge a higher fee, and 5 of them charge based upon a scaled fee. So now, next item, of the 16 that charge a higher fee than the IDR's 0.75%, 14 charge 1%, 1 charges 1.25%, and 1 charges 2% on the first 10 million, and then 0.5% on anything over that amount.
Who's that one?
I'd have to go back and check, but 2% is huge.
Yeah.
Huge on $10 million, on a $10 million project. Anyways, and these are some of the sliding scale. When down at the bottom, when I just looked around us, our counties that we are kind of competing against regionally, Montgomery County charges the same as us. Saratoga is one of those ones that has a sliding fee scale. Herkimer and Schenectady charge more than us. And the reason I'm presenting this is, again, this is kind of every so often we take a look at this and see, are we in the ballpark of where you want to be, or is there something you'd want to modify?
Is there a sense that we've been losing out on potential revenue by charging what we've been charging?
Didn't that just raise it a couple years
You,
ago?
you amended it. It used to be 0.75% of the project subject to sales tax.
We changed it to 7.75% of the total
Of the
project
total.
cost. Again, we did that because back then, when we looked at everybody, that's how everybody was doing it, and we weren't, so we made that. Any
Looks to
compelling
me
reason?
like we're competitive.
I think we're fine. Again, I just wanted everybody to see. Okay? Moving on, under other business, we have our fire tax bills for the town of Johnstown, those shown on the agenda. The IDA is tax exempt. except for fire taxes. We still have to pay fire taxes on the property. So Joe's made a motion to authorize paying those. Is there a second to that motion? Greg, thank you. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? That's all I have for open session. I'd like to request an executive session for the reasons cited in the agenda. Would someone be willing to make that motion to go in executive? Dave? Is there a second to that motion? Joe? Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Very good. We're in at 5:04 PM. Oh,
He can't vote.
he can't vote.
vote,
Yeah,
so we're
correct.
good.
So for sake of background, Tryon Technology Park pump station does not have a current generator. And with the anticipated startup of the Vireo Health Project, going to see a significant increase in the loads coming to there. Once that happens, it'll be needed to have a backup generator installed to ensure that that pump station would be functioning during the power outage. We received 2 proposals from CT Mail and from Environmental Design Partnership. We reviewed both of those proposals. Would someone like to make a motion to accept one of those proposals?
Environmental matters.
Okay, second. With the understanding that the number may change depending upon that scope of work with adding for leasing units.
Yes, sir.
Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Opposed. We have
We got 4-1, that's
four,
fine.
4-1-1, right? 4-1-1.
But you new members came.
Okay, our next meeting is Tuesday, February 8th. Would someone make a motion to close the meeting?
Absolutely.
Todd will second that motion. So,
So,
all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Motion at 6:13. Let's head down south.
as I know, we'll have-
We're going to